everyone, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we are talking about the quarter 2 book releases for 2024. Video is coming out a little bit late. Normally I try and put these videos out like before we're into the next quarter, so this should have come out at the end of March instead of the beginning to middle-ish of April, because we're going to be talking about April, May, and June releases for 2024. However, as I've mentioned a few times on this channel, we took vacation last month and then basically came home being sick. I had strep, which was horrible. Throat did not want me to talk, that kind of thing, so I ended up having to skip like almost a whole week, at least a whole week of videos. So we're now catching up. I do have 30 new titles coming out in these next 3 months, April, May, and June, that I want to talk about. I personally have probably forgotten many of these summaries, so we're mostly just going to read them again because that is just how I work. And because we have 30 titles, we're going to jump right on into it. We are going to be starting at the beginning of April, so things that have actually technically already passed us by. We're starting with 4 different books that have come out on April 2nd. The first is Here We Go Again by Allison Cochran. It says it's going to be a new queer rom-com following once childhood best friends forced together to drive their former teacher across the country. A long time ago, Logan Miletus and Rosemary Hale used to be friends. They spent their childhood summers running through the woods, rebelling against their conservative small town, and dreaming of escaping. But when an incident the summer before high school turned them into bitter rivals, after graduation they went 10 years without speaking. Now in their 30s, Logan and Rosemary find they aren't quite living the lives of adventure they imagined for themselves. Still in their small town and working as teachers at their alma mater, they're both stuck in old patterns. Uptight Rosemary chooses security and stability over all else, working constantly, and her most stable relationship is with her label maker. Chaotic and impulsive Logan has a long list of misguided ex-lovers and an apathetic shrug she uses to protect herself from anything real. And as hard as they try to avoid each other and their complicated past, they keep crashing into each other, including with their cars. But when their beloved former English teacher and lifelong mentor tells them he only has a few months to live, they're forced together once and for all to fulfill his last wish, a cross-country road trip. Stuffed into the gayest van west of the Mississippi, the three embark on a life-changing summer trip from Washington State to the Grand Canyon, from the Gulf Coast to coastal Maine, that will chart a new future and perhaps lead them back to one another. We also have The Black Girl Survives in this one. This is edited by Desiree S. Evans and Saracia J. Fennell, but it's going to have quite a few different authors here because it is going to be an anthology collection. It says, "Be warned, dear reader, the Black girls survive in this one." Celebrating a new generation of best-selling and acclaimed Black writers, The Black Girl Survives in this one makes space for Black girls in horror. 15 chilling and thought-provoking stories place Black girls front and center as heroes and survivors who slay monsters, battle spirits, and face down death. Prepare to be terrified and left breathless by the pieces in this anthology, and the authors that are included are Erin E. Adams, Monica Brashears, Charlotte Nicole Davis, Desiree S. Evans, Saracia J. Fennell, Zakiya Delilah Harris, Daka Herman, Justina Ireland, L.L. McKinney, Brittany Morris, Maritza and Maika Mulit, Eden Royce, and Vincent Tirado, with a foreword by Tanana Reeve Dew. We also have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I've personally never read an Abby Jimenez, not that I've not wanted to, but this one also just sounded really good. So Justin has a curse, and thanks to a Reddit thread, it's now all over the internet. Every woman he dates goes on to find their soulmate the second they break up. When a woman slides into his DMs with the same problem, they come up with a plan. They'll date each other and break up. Their curses will cancel each other out, and they'll both go on to find the love of their lives. It's a bonkers idea, and it might just work. Emma hadn't planned that her next assignment as a traveling nurse would be in Minnesota, but she and her best friend agree that dating Justin is too good of an opportunity to pass up, especially when they get to rent an adorable cottage on a private island on Lake Minnetonka. It's supposed to be a quick fling just for the summer, but when Emma's toxic mother shows up and Justin has to assume guardianship of his 3 siblings, they're suddenly navigating a lot more than they expected, including catching real feelings for each other. What if this time fate has actually brought the perfect pair together? I love the fact that this seems like it's going to be having a slight magical element to it. And the last book coming out on this date is Otherworldly by F.T. Lukens. 17-year-old Ellery is a non-believer in a region where people swear the supernatural is real. Sure, they've been stuck in a 5-year winter, but there's got to be a scientific explanation. If goddesses were real, they wouldn't abandon their charges like this, leaving farmers like Ellery's family to scrape by. Nox is a familiar from the Otherworld, a magical assistant sent to help humans who have made crossroads bargains. But it's been years since he heard from his queen, and Nox is getting nervous about what he might find once he returns home. When the Crossroads demons come to collect Nox, he panics and runs. A chance encounter down an alley finds Ellery coming to Nox's rescue, successfully fending off his would-be abductors. Ellery can't quite believe what they've seen, and they definitely don't believe the nonsense this unnervingly attractive guy spews about his paranormal origin. But Nox needs to make a deal with a human who can tether him to this realm, and Ellery needs to figure out how to stop this winter to help their family. Once their bargain is struck, there's no backing out, and the growing connection between the two might just change everything. Then I also had 6 books coming out on April 9th, which is the day I'm filming this, so happy book birthday to these 6 books. The first one I have here is Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. This is going to be a horror sci-fi. I absolutely loved Dead Silence that this author did before, so space exploration can be lonely and isolating. Psychologist Dr. Ophelia Bray has dedicated her life to the study and prevention of ERS, a space-based condition most famous for a case that resulted in the brutal murders of 29 people. When she's assigned to a small exploration crew, she's eager to make a difference. But as they begin to establish residency on an abandoned planet, it becomes clear that crew is hiding something. While Ophelia focuses on her new role, her crewmates are far more interested in investigating the eerie ancient planet and unraveling the mystery behind the previous colonizers' hasty departure than opening up to her. That is, until their pilot is discovered gruesomely murdered. Is this Ophelia's worst nightmare starting? A wave of violence and mental deterioration from ERS? Or is it something more sinister? Terrified that history will repeat itself, Ophelia and the crew must work together to figure out what's happening, but trust is hard to come by, and the crew isn't the only one keeping secrets. We also have Next to You by Hannah Bonham Young. This is a book that was originally published as an indie and has now been picked up. Lane is in the middle of an identity crisis. Her friends are all partnered up, her career is leading nowhere, and simply put, she's not happy. So after a night out celebrating her birthday, she makes one hell of an impulsive purchase, a giant yellow 48-passenger school bus that she intends to make a home. With little to no renovation experience but a large sum of inheritance money, Lane enlists the help of her friend Matt, a mechanic by trade, handyman by practice, and haughty by nature. While their mutual attraction is undeniable, Matt and Lane have silently agreed that a friendship is the only thing that can ever exist between them. Matt's a total family guy with "settle down with me" tattooed across his forehead, whereas Lane is entirely commitment averse. It could never work, right? We also have The Kiss Countdown by Etta Easton. Risk-adverse event planner Amory Price is jobless, newly single, and about to lose her apartment. With no choice but to gamble on her shaky startup, the last thing she needed was to run into her smug ex and his new, less complicated girlfriend at Amory's favorite coffee shop. Panicked, she pretends to be dating the annoyingly sexy man she met by spilling Americano all over his abs. He plays along for a price. Half the single men in Houston claim to be astronauts, but Vincent Rogers turns out to be the real deal. What started as a one-off lie morphs into a plan. For the 3 months leading up to his mission, Amory will play Vincent's doting partner in front of his loving but overly invested family. In exchange, she gets a rent-free room in his house and can put every penny toward her struggling business. What Amory doesn't plan for is Vincent's gravitational pull. While her mind tells her a future with this astronaut is too unpredictable, her heart says he's exactly what she needs. As their time together counts down, Amory must decide if she'll settle for the safe life or shoot for the stars. We also have The Prospects by K.T. Hoffman. Hope is familiar territory for Gina Ionescu. He has always loved baseball, a sport made for underdogs and optimists like him. He also loves his team, the minor league Beaverton Beavers, and for the most part, he loves the career he's built. As the first openly trans player in professional baseball, Gene has nearly everything he's ever let himself dream of. That is, until Luis Estrada, Gene's former teammate and current rival, gets traded to the Beavers, destroying the careful equilibrium of Gene's life. Gene and Luis can't manage a civil conversation off the field or a competent play on it. But in the close confines of dugout benches and roadie buses, they begrudgingly rediscover a comfortable rhythm. As the two grow closer, the tension between them turns electric, and their chemistry spills past the confines of the stadium. For every tight double play they execute, there's also a glance at summer-tanned shoulders or a secret shared, each one a breathless moment of possibility that ignites in Gene the visceral, terrifying kind of desire he's never allowed himself. Soon Gene has to reconcile the quiet, minor league-sized life he used to find fulfilling with the major league dreams Luis makes feel possible. Next, we have How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwong. Helen Jong hasn't seen Grant Shepard once in the 13 years since the tragic accident that bound their lives together forever. Now a best-selling author, Helen pours everything into her career. She's even scored a coveted spot in the writer's room of the TV adaptation of her popular young adult novels. And if she can hide her imposter syndrome and overcome her writer's block, surely the rest of her life will fall into place too. LA is the fresh start she needs. After all, no one knows her there except Grant has done everything in his power to move on from the past, including building a life across the country. And while the panic attacks have never quite gone away, he's well liked around town as a screenwriter. He knows he shouldn't have taken the job on Helen's show, but it will open doors to developing his own projects that he just can't pass up. Grant's exactly as Helen remembers him, charming, funny, popular, and lovable in ways that she's never been. And Helen's exactly as Grant remembers too. Brilliant, beautiful, closed off. But working together is messy and electrifying, and Helen's parents, who have never forgiven Grant, have no idea he's in the picture at all. When secrets come to light, they must reckon with the fact that theirs was never meant to be any kind of love story. And yet, the key to making peace with their past and themselves might just lie in holding on to each other in the present. And the last one coming out today, April 9th, the day I'm filming at least, is Wild Love by Elsie Silver. She's been driving him wild for years. The good kind of wild, the bad kind of wild. But mostly the kind of wild that comes with wanting your best friend's little sister and knowing you can't have her. Forbes may have labeled Ford Grant the world's hottest billionaire, but all he cares about is escaping the press and opening a recording studio in gorgeous small town Rose Hill. Something that comes to a screeching halt when he ends up face to face with a young girl who claims he's her biological father. Now he spends his days balancing business with parenting a sullen 12-year-old, all while trying desperately to keep his hands the hell off his best friend's sister, Rosie Belmont. After living in the city, Rosie came blasting back into town like a storm, beautiful, messy, and chaotic. And one wide-eyed, desperate plea for a job is all it takes for Ford to hire her. He vows to keep her at arm's length, tries to stick to scowls and grumpy one-liners, but with her, verbal sparring is a type of foreplay, friction that soon turns to blistering heat. Ford knows damn well he shouldn't cross this line, but shouldn't and can't are two very different things, and the only thing he truly can't do is resist her. Okay, now moving on to dates that have not passed us yet, I have two books coming out on April 16th. The first is Late Bloomer by Maisie Eddings. This is an arc that I'm actually currently reading, so I know a little bit more about it. We're not going to have to read the summary. But basically, this is an author that I read the Plus One from last year, absolutely loved. And this is an adult sapphic romance by this author. One of our main characters is Opal, who has just recently won like a scratch-off lottery and decides to buy a flower farm because she's an artist and she wants to just go be in nature. And there is another woman named Pepper living on this flower farm. The farm was sold not by her, but by her mother, who she's estranged from. And now they're both in sort of a predicament of being at this flower farm. One sort of being like, hey, are you actually going to kick me out? And this is, like I said, going to be an adult sapphic romance. One thing also, this author is autistic, and both of our characters here are autistic or neurodivergent in some way. And so far, I'm really loving the representation, and that's what we have so far going on. I'm still reading it, so I will let you know in my wrap-up how I feel about it, but I had to mention it here. And then we also have Bad Dreams in the Night by Adam Ellis. This is going to be a graphic novel version of like scary stories to tell in the dark, according to this and everything I've seen the author talk about. It's a collection of original horror tales packed with urban legends, terrifying twists, and delightfully haunted stories. This is an artist and author who is like on Instagram and stuff. I follow him on there. I've absolutely loved his horror comics that he's been doing recently, so I'm very intrigued by this one. We also have two books coming out on April 30th. The first is Truly, Madly, Deeply by Alexandria Bellafleur. As a best-selling romance novelist, everyone thinks Truly Livingston is an expert on happily ever afters. She's even signed on to record a podcast sharing relationship advice. Little do they know, she feels like an imposter. Her parents just announced they're separating, she caught her fiance cheating, and her entire view on love has been shaken to the core. Truly hopes the podcast will distract her until she meets her co-host. Her first impressions of Colin McCrory is hot. But then he opens his extremely kissable mouth. Colin's view on love just pisses Truly off, even if he does have an annoyingly attractive face. Bickering with a cynical divorce lawyer is the last thing she needs, so she walks out with no plans to return. A few days later, Truly is surprised when Colin tracks her down asking for a fresh start. Truly can't deny the little thrill she gets from Colin begging, so she reluctantly agrees. As they go from enemies to friends to something else entirely, Truly discovers they have more in common than she ever imagined, including their shared queerness. He's a genuinely good guy, charming, sweet, and equally as unlucky in love as herself, and there's something about Colin that drives Truly a little wild. When their attraction reaches a fever pitch, Truly is happy for the first time in years. Yet she can't help but wonder, is Colin truly, madly, deeply in love with her, or is it all too good to be true? And we also have Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. After their mother passes, 3 estranged siblings reunite to sort out her estate. Beth, the oldest, never left home. She stayed with her mom, caring for her until the very end. Nicole, the middle child, has been kept at arm's length due to her ongoing battle with a serious drug addiction. Michael, the youngest, lives out of state and hasn't been back to their small Wisconsin town since their father ran out on them 7 years before. While going through their parents' belongings, the siblings stumble upon a collection of home videos and decide to revisit those happier memories. However, the nostalgia is cut short when one of the VHS tapes reveals a night back in 1999 that none of them have any recollection of. On screen, their father appears covered in blood. What follows is a dead body and a pact between their parents to get rid of it before the video abruptly ends. Beth, Nicole, and Michael must now decide whether to leave the past in the past or uncover the dark secret their mother took to her grave. Okay, we're going to be moving into May on May 14th. There are 2 books coming out. The first is The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. Anna Green thought she was marrying Liam Weston for access to subsidized family housing while at UCLA. She also thought she'd signed divorce papers when the graduation caps were tossed and they both went on their merry ways. 3 years later, Anna is a starving artist living paycheck to paycheck while West is a Stanford professor. He may be one of 4 heirs to the Weston Foods conglomerate, but he has little interest in working for the heartless corporation his family built from the ground up. He is interested, however, in his $100 million inheritance. There's just one catch. Due to an antiquated clause in his grandfather's will, Liam won't see a penny until he's been happily married for 5 years. Just when Liam thinks he's in the home stretch, pressure mounts from his family to see this mysterious spouse, and he has no choice but to turn to the one person he's afraid to introduce to his 1%er parents, his unpolished, not-so-ex-wife. But in the presence of his family, Liam's fears quickly shift from whether the feisty, foul-mouthed, paint-splattered Anna can play the part to whether the toxic world of wealth will corrupt someone as pure of heart as his surprisingly grounded and loyal wife. Liam will have to ask himself if the price tag on his flimsy cover story is worth losing true love that sprouted from a lie. And we also have The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields. 21-year-old Marigold Claude has always preferred the company of the spirits of the meadow to any of the suitors who've tried to woo her. So when her grandmother whisks her away to the family cottage on the tiny Isle of Innisfree with an offer to train her as the next Honey Witch, she accepts immediately. But her newfound magic and independence come with a no one can fall in love with the Honey Witch. When Lottie Burke, a notoriously grumpy skeptic who doesn't believe in magic, shows up on her doorstep, Marigold can't resist the challenge to prove to her that magic is real. But soon, Marigold begins to care for Lottie in ways she never expected, and when darker magic awakens and threatens to destroy her home, she must fight for much more than her new home, at the risk of losing her magic and her heart. We also have 3 books coming out on May 21st. The first is Looking for Love in All the Haunted Places by Claire Kahn. Lucky Heart has an affinity for the supernatural, but almost no one takes parapsychology seriously. She's estranged from her family, has lost her friends, and has been rejected from graduate school twice. But her big break finally arrives when she gets insider info about a troubled production company. Every actor on the new show mysteriously quits after spending 3 nights inside Hennessy House, an old Victorian with a notorious reputation. I'm pretty sure I read a summary of this that was longer previously in a different video. This is going to be a sort of magical fantasy romance type of thing, but apparently that's the only summary we have right now, so that's fine. The next one we have here is The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. Solve the murder to save what's left of the world. Outside the island there is nothing. The world was destroyed by a fog that swept the planet, killing anyone it touched. On the island, it is idyllic. 122 villagers and 3 scientists living in peaceful harmony. The villagers are content to fish, farm, and feast, to obey their nightly curfew, to do what they're told by the scientists. Until, to the horror of the islanders, one of their beloved scientists is found brutally stabbed to death. And then they learn that the murder has triggered a lowering of the security system around the island, the only thing that was keeping the fog at bay. If the murder isn't solved within 107 hours, the fog will smother the island and everyone on it. But the security system has also wiped everyone's memories of exactly what happened the night before, which means that someone on the island is a murderer, and they don't even know it. And the clock is ticking. We also have How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying by Django Wexler. This is apparently Groundhog's Day meets Guardians of the Galaxy. So, Davi has done this all before. She's tried to be the hero and take down the all-powerful Dark Lord. 100 times she's rallied humanity and made the final charge. But the time loop always gets her in the end. Sometimes she's killed quickly, sometimes it takes a while, but she's defeated every time. This time, she's done being the hero and done being stuck in this endless time loop. If the Dark Lord always wins, then maybe that's who she needs to be. It's Davi's turn to play on the winning side. We also have one book coming out on May 28th, which is Twelfth Knight by Axeline Farrell Fulmouth, which is the same author as Olivia Blake, but this is going to be YA. Viola Reyes is annoyed. Her painstakingly crafted tabletop game campaign was shot down. Her best friend is suggesting she try being more likable, and school running back Jack Orsino is the most lackadaisical student body president she's ever seen, which makes her job as VP that much harder. Vi's favorite escape from the world is the MMORPG Twelfth Knight, but online spaces aren't exactly kind to girls like her, girls who are extremely competent and have the swagger to prove it. So Vi creates a masculine alter ego, choosing to play as a knight named Cesario to create a safe haven for herself. But when a football injury leads Jack Orsino to the world of Twelfth Knight, Vi is alarmed to discover their online alter egos Cesario and Duke Orsino are surprisingly well matched. As the long nights of gameplay turn into discussions about life and love, Vi and Jack soon realize they've become more than just weapon-wielding characters in an online game. But Vi has been concealing her true identity from Jack, and Jack might just be falling for her offline. Okay, now moving into June, we have 2 books releasing on June 4th. The first is Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. Again, indie books that are now being published traditionally. Winifred Wynne McNulty has always been wildly independent. Not one to be coddled for her limb difference, Wynne has spent most of her life trying to prove that she can do it all on her own. And with some minor adjustments, she's done just fine. That is until she has a one-night stand with the incredibly charming Beau, a perfect stranger, and that one night changes everything. While Beau is surprisingly elated to step up to the plate, Wynne finds herself unsure of whether she can handle this new challenge on her own or if she'll need a helping hand. Together, Wynne and Beau decide to get to know one another as friends and nothing more, but as they both should know by now, life rarely goes according to plan. We also have Daughter of the Merciful Deep by Leslie Penelope, who also has written other books as L. Penelope. Our home began, as all things do, with a wish. Jane Edwards hasn't spoken since she was 11 years old, when armed riders expelled her family from their hometown along with every other black resident. Now 12 years later, she's found a haven in the all-black town of Awanasa. But the construction of a dam promises to wash her home under the waters of the new lake. Jane will do anything to save the community that sheltered her, so when a man with uncanny abilities arrives in town asking strange questions, she wonders if he might be the key. But as the stranger hints at gods and ancestral magic, Jane is captivated by a bigger mystery. She knows this man, only the last time she saw him, he was dead. His body laid to rest in a rushing river. Who is the stranger and what is he really doing in Awanasa? To find those answers, Jane will journey into a sunken world, a land of capricious gods and unsung myths, of salvation and dreams made real. But the floodwaters are rising. To gain the miracle she desires, Jane will have to find her voice again and finally face the trauma of the past. We then also have 3 books releasing on June 11th. The first is The Stars Too Fondly by Emily Hamilton. This is going to be a debut. So here's the thing, Cleo and her friends really truly didn't mean to steal this spaceship. They just wanted to know why 20 years ago the entire Providence crew vanished without a trace. But then the stupid dark matter engine started on its own. Now these four 20-somethings are en route to Proxima Centauri and unable to turn around while being harangued by a hologram that has the face and snide attitude of the ship's missing Captain Billy. Cleo has dreamt of being an astronaut all her life, and Earth is a lost cause at this point, so this should be one of those blessings in disguise that people talk about. But as the ship travels deeper into space, the laws of physics start twisting. Old mysteries come crawling back to life, and Cleo's initially combative relationship with Billy turns into something deeper and more desperate than either woman was prepared for. We also have Everyone I Kissed Since You Got Famous by May Marvel. Katie Price is known in every living room in America. A small-town Wisconsin girl who became an A-list star, she rarely makes it home. But this year is different. Little does she know it will lead her straight into the piercing blue-eyed gaze of Will Green. A lot has happened in the decade since those cold Wisconsin nights when Will and Katie drove around in Will's Broncos senior year. Since then, Will's law career hasn't taken off. Her father passed away, and what started as a personal challenge, kissing a new person twice a week, every week, has made her a growing sensation. But her life is still stuck in phase 1. Through the years, the two have never left each other's thoughts and desires. But now suddenly they are back in each other's lives. Their reconnection is instantaneous and the passion is palpable, but can it stand the test of time? And then we also have Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. It says it's going to be a chilling twist on the cursed film genre. In June 1993, a group of young guerrilla filmmakers spent 4 weeks making Horror Movie, a notorious, disturbing art house horror flick. The weird part, only 3 of the film's scenes were ever released to the public, but Horror Movie has nevertheless grown a rabid fan base. 3 decades later, Hollywood is pushing for a big budget reboot. The man who played the Thin Kid is the only surviving cast member. He remembers all too well the secrets buried within the original screenplay, the bizarre events of the filming, and the dangerous crossed lines on set that resulted in tragedy. As memories flood back in, the boundaries between reality and film, past and present, start to blur. But he's going to help remake the film, even if it means navigating a world of cynical producers, egomaniacal directors, and surreal fan conventions, demons of the past to be damned. But at what cost? Then we also have 2 books releasing on June 18th. The first is Hearts That Cut by Kika Hatsapolu. This is the sequel and finale to the Threads That Bind duology. I read the first one last year, absolutely love it. It was one of my top reads of the year, and so because this is a duology finale sort of thing, I'm not going to read the summary. I will just let you know that this is a YA, sort of like Greek mythology fantasy book. We do have some other mythologies there as well, but our main character is one of the 3 fates, like her and her 2 sisters each have a power of like the Greek fates, and it is this like really sort of urban fantasy type of world as well. There's a mystery, like a murder mystery sort of thing going on too. Like, I just really loved the combination of the mythology and the fantasy and the world building, and there's a little bit of romance. Like, I need this book now because it is the finale and I loved the first one. Then we also have Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. The worst thing to ever happen on Hemlock Circle occurred in Ethan Marsh's backyard. One July night, 10-year-old Ethan and his best friend and neighbor Billy fell asleep in a tent set up on a manicured lawn in a quiet, quaint New Jersey cul-de-sac. In the morning, Ethan woke up alone. During the night, someone had sliced the tent open with a knife and taken Billy. He was never seen again. 30 years later, Ethan has reluctantly returned to his childhood home. Plagued by bad dreams and insomnia, he begins to notice strange things happening in the middle of the night. Someone seems to be roaming the cul-de-sac at odd hours, and signs of Billy's presence keep appearing in Ethan's backyard. Is someone playing a cruel prank? Or has Billy, long thought to be dead, somehow returned to Hemlock Circle? The mysterious occurrences prompt Ethan to investigate what really happened that night, a quest that reunites him with former friends and neighbors and leads him into the woods that surround Hemlock Circle. Woods where Billy claimed monsters roamed and where a mysterious institute does clandestine research on a crumbling estate. The closer Ethan gets to the truth, the more he realizes that no place, be it quiet forest or suburban street, is completely safe, and that the past has a way of haunting the present. And then finally, the last date I have here is June 25th, and I have 3 books releasing on this date. The first is Tangled Up in You by Christina Lauren. This is the 4th book in the Meant to Be series of romances that are like based on Disney fairy tales. This one is obviously going to be based on Tangled. It says, she has a dream, he has a plan, together they'll take a leap of faith. Ren has never held an iPhone, Googled the answer to a question, or followed a crush on social media. What she has done, read a book or two, or three, okay, hundreds, taught herself to paint, built a working wind power system from scratch. But for all the books she's read, Ren has never found one that's taught a woman raised on a homestead and off the grid for most of her 22 years how to live in the real world. So when she finally achieves her lifelong dream of attending Corona College, it feels like her life is finally beginning. Fitz has the rest of his life mapped out. Graduate from Corona at the top of his class, get his criminal record wiped clean, and pass himself off as the rich, handsome player everyone thinks he is. He's a few months short from checking off step one of his plans when Ren Gilden, with her cascading blonde hair and encyclopedic brain, crashes into his life, and for the first time, Fitz's plan is in jeopardy. But a simple assignment in their immunology seminar changes the course of both of their lives, and suddenly they're thrown out of the frying pan and into the fire on a road trip that will lead them in the most unexpected directions. Out on the open road, the world somehow shifts and the unlikely pair realize that maybe the key to the dreams they've both been chasing has been sitting next to them the whole time. I also have Rules for Second Chances by Maggie North. This is going to be a debut. Liz Lewis has tried everything to be what people want, but she's always been labeled different in the boisterous world of wilderness expeditions. Her marriage to popular adventure guide Tobin Renner Lewis is a sinkhole of toxic positivity where she's the only one saying no. When she gets mistaken for a server at her own 30th birthday party, Liz vows to stop playing a minor character in her own life. The incredibly well-researched and scientific plan? A crash course in confidence via an improv comedy class. The catch? She's terrible at it, and the only person willing to practice with her is a certain extroverted wilderness guide who seems dead set on saving their marriage. But as Liz and Tobin get closer again, she's forced to confront all the reasons they didn't work the first time, along with her growing suspicion that her social awkwardness might mean something deeper. Liz must learn improv's most important lesson, yes, and. Or she'll have to choose between the love she's always wanted and the dreams that got away. Brimming with heart and heat, Rules for Second Chances explores the hardest relationship question of all: can true love happen twice with the same person? And finally, I have a novel love story by Ashley Poston. Eileen Merriweather loves to get lost in a good happily ever after. The fictional kind, anyway. Because at least imaginary men don't leave you at the altar. She feels safe in a book at home, which might be why she's so set on going to her annual book club retreat this year. She needs good friends, cheap wine, and grand romantic gestures no matter what. But when her car unexpectedly breaks down on the way, she finds herself stranded in a quaint town that feels like it's right out of a novel. Because it is. This place can't be real, and yet she's here in Aloriton, the town of her favorite romance series, where the candy store's honey taffy is always sweet, the local bar's burgers are always a little burnt, and rain always comes in the afternoon. It feels like home. It's perfect and perfectly frozen, trapped in the late author's last unfinished story. Elsie is sure that's why she must be here, to help bring the town to its storybook ending. Except there is a character in Aloriton that she can't place, a grumpy bookstore owner with mint green eyes, an irritatingly sexy mouth, and impeccable taste in novels. And he does not want her finishing this book. Which is a problem because Elsie is beginning to think the town's happily ever after might just be entwined with her own. Okay, so that was all 30. Hopefully this wasn't too long of a video. But these are all books that I'm very excited for. I think we can also tell that I'm very much in a romance kick right now because there was quite a bit of romance on this list. Let me know if there are any books that you're looking forward to coming out in the next 3 months that I just somehow missed because I'm always growing my TBR. That is the problem with BookTube. I am always growing my TBR. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more videos. I do have videos coming out Tuesdays, Thursdays, and sometimes Saturdays, so I will see you then. Bye!